Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. To some of you, probably good evening. And welcome to today's session, Spotlight on Partners, hosted by Atera. Very happy to see you here. We'll start in just a few minutes. Let's give a couple more people to join. While we wait a couple more minutes, I invite you to write your name and tell us where you're from in the chat box. Come on. Feel free to type in the chat box where you're from. Okay, I see we've got an issue with the chat box there, Julie. So just write in the Q&A and we will read out. Apologies for that. So we've got someone here from sunny Nairobi. I grew up in Nairobi, so great to see people from Kenya. We've got people from Israel. We've got people from Hungary. Awesome. Doug from Virginia. We also have Craig from Alabama. So Julie will help us with the chat. Don't worry about that, but feel free to type in the Q&A section. We'll be kicking off in just a minute. Great. Really lovely to see the audience joining us today. We've got people from New York. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing where you're from. And again, thank you for attending our webinar today. My name is Muna Asi. I head product marketing at Atera, and I'm really delighted to be moderating today's session. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. Welcome to our partner collaboration series, where we place a spotlight on our latest integrations and on the solutions offered by our partners, where each one of the integrations plays an integral role in helping you, our customers, optimize your tasks, boost security, drive efficiencies, and for business growth. And all of this you can attain through a single all-in-one platform, which is Atera. And if you're asking yourself, how can I stay up to date on the latest integrations? I invite you to check out our website on the integrations page, and you can explore within the add-on section in Atera the latest integrations. So let's kick this off. Let's see. So we'll start off with a little housekeeping. If you have any questions, I do invite you to submit those questions within the Q&A box, not within the chat, within the Q&A, please. We have people in the background that will be addressing. This webinar is being recorded, so we will share with attendees a link to the session in a follow-up email, but you can also find this recording on our website after the webinar. Again, as I mentioned, we will be answering questions throughout the presentation, so please put them in the Q&A box and our partners will address those. At the end of the webinar, we will be popping up a short survey. It's a really short survey, less than a minute. Please respond to the survey. It helps us improve. It helps us understand what you'd like to see and how you'd like us to follow up with you. So let's get started. We're going to Sorry, there we go. Okay, so we will start off by introducing our speakers. Then each one of our speakers will have an opportunity to present their company and to talk about the solutions they offer. We will start off with Domotz. Domotz is a cloud-based multi-tenant network monitoring software for identifying, monitoring, and managing all devices on the network. We'll then hear about Threatlocker, which is a global leader in endpoint security technologies that offers a new type of security solution through its zero trust model. And finally, we're going to hear from Veeam Software, the leader in backup, recovery, and data management solutions that deliver modern data protection. So please help me to welcome our speakers. Our speakers, feel free to put yourself on camera. Very excited to have JB Fowler with us today, who's the Chief Product Officer at Domotz. Welcome, JB.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to be here as well, Muna.
Thank you. We're excited to have you. We also have Ben Jenkins, who's a cybersecurity expert with Threatlocker. Hi, Ben. Thank you for joining.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And then we've got Dave Russell, Vice President of Enterprise Strategy, joining us from Veeam Software. Hi, Dave. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Muna.
Awesome. And that's myself there as the moderator. So gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And let's kick this session off. So we will start off with Domotz. As I mentioned, we have JB. JB is the Chief Product Officer, and he's been with Domotz since 2017. Many of you may probably have spotted JB in one of the training videos or the webinars of Domotz. JB has decades of experience in the AV as well as MSP space. He's passionate about translating customer needs and Domotz users' needs into product features and integrations. When JB is not at Domotz, he loves mountain biking, using his laser printer, and tinkering with the latest AV gadgets. Along with JB, we've got Giancarlo and in the background, along with Bobby Wilson, who'll be addressing your questions. So please type in those questions as we run through the webinar. We'll be happy to address them at the end of each presentation, but also at the end of the webinar itself. So with no further ado, JB, the stage is yours.
Excellent. Well, I will share my screen here, Muna. So let me try to do that.
Let me stop sharing.
Yep.
There we
go.
go.
Beautiful. Okay. Let's just share this right here. Excellent. So as Muna said, I am the Chief Product Officer for Domotz. Let me talk a little bit about what Domotz is. And while I'm doing that, Muna, if you want to put up that poll that we have, that would be great. Domotz is a network monitoring and management solution. Our fundamental goal for you guys as service providers is to help you be more operationally efficient, but also help you be a lot more proactive when it comes to problems that may arise on the network. We recognize the fact that you guys are dealing with more than just endpoints, right? Just PCs, laptops, and servers. Right, there's this world of networking that is now coming into the businesses that you help manage and do IT for. Right, you're dealing with IoT devices getting onto these systems, and along with this, you start to recognize that there are security holes or vulnerabilities. And so I think this poll is really helpful to understand how you are using a tool like Domotz as a network management solution to really help improve your cyber hygiene. Right. It's interesting here on these results, right? It's good to see that some of you are actually using this for this, but the ones that say no to this, I invite you to listen to how a solution like Domotz will help you in this manner. So with that being said, let's go ahead and close that and let's get started. As Muna said as well, Giancarlo and Bobby are both standing by in the background to answer any questions, and I think that they will do that effectively. If there's some good questions that come up that we need to address at the end, I'll be happy to do that as well. So I say that we're helping you with operational efficiency. I say that we're helping you be more proactive. So how do we do that? Well, Domotz is really about IoT discovery and classification. We look at every single device that is on the network, whether it is a standard endpoint, whether it's a networking device or a network infrastructure device, or if it's another system that's just sitting on that network, right? Even if it's something that somebody brings into the network, we're going to discover that device immediately. We're going to help classify that device. We're also going to tell you where that device is within the network infrastructure itself. And we'll show you about that. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. We also do proactive monitoring. So for every single device that's on the network, as well as the network infrastructure, whether it's a firewall, a router, a managed switch, wireless access points, right? We're going to give you information about those systems so that you know what's going on in the network, and it's going to help you be more proactive with your customers. We want you to know that there's a problem on the network before you get the phone call from your customer. Ultimately, we want to get you away from that whole break fix mentality and go into more of a proactive monitoring solution. And that, in my mind, is really what Domotz is fundamentally about. Once you have discovered that there's a problem on the network, you of course need to be able to fix it. We want you to be able to fix it remotely. And this is where that operational efficiency comes in. If we can provide you with a secure means of logging into that device or that system that is in a troubled state and being able to fix that remotely so that you don't have to do an on-site support or a truck roll, we think that it makes you more efficient. It also solves that problem for your customer faster. And that's a core value of that Domotz brings to you. Lastly, right, this tool wouldn't be any good if it wasn't easy to deploy and didn't help you actually troubleshoot systems that are out there. These are the 4 principles that build up what Domotz is for you and how we make you more efficient. Let's talk a little bit about some of the problems that we're solving and how this helps you with those CIS controls that we talked about in that poll at the very beginning. First and foremost, when it comes to IoT discovery and classification or device discovery and classification, this is where we really shine, right? One of the things that we do very well is we help solve CIS control number 1. CIS control number 1 is about understanding the enterprise assets that are on your network, not just the endpoints that you're managing through a standard RMM, but all the devices that are on the network, anything that may be affecting that security footprint or maybe affecting the network performance, right? We want you to be aware of that. We're going to give you a real-time understanding of what devices they're there. We're going to classify all those devices by not only make, but also model and type of device. We're going to tell you that there's a security camera. We're going to tell you that there is a network-based device on there, right? We're there to help improve the asset management side and documentation side of what you're doing as a service provider. So that's thing number 1. Thing number 2 is absolutely about network management. We're going to look at all the network infrastructure that's there for you. We're going to classify those devices. We're going to make sure that they're working properly. We're going to allow you to set up sensors on these things. We're also going to do backup configurations of that network infrastructure, which is really a critical part of CIS control number 12 that's out there. Along with this, we're going to map that. We're going to map the topology of the network, how everything is interconnected. This is going to help you stay more proactive. And then lastly, it really is about security and awareness. Any device that gets on that network should be seen as a threat to that potentially a threat to that network. You need to be aware of what's going on there, and you need to understand what it is and how it's being configured. If there are ports that are open for vulnerabilities, we're going to scan those. This really leads to CIS control number 7. All of these CIS controls that I'm talking about are critical to any framework, any security framework that you're using. So with that being said, let me jump into some of the screenshots of how Domotz does this, and you'll see how we can improve your cyber hygiene. First and foremost, we are a multi-tenant solution. Okay, we know that you have more than one customer. While we do really, really well in enterprise-based solutions, we're extremely targeted for service providers. We know that you have multiple customers. You want to have one solution that you can use to see all of these customers in one single dashboard. Domotz makes it very easy to organize your customers by their systems, right? Their organizations, or by their sites that are out there. Or even if you want to look at all the devices that you have across all of your customers, you can do that. Makes it very easy to understand, when you have systems that are either offline or need new firmware updates, you can look all across your customers and see that in one single dashboard. So multi-tenancy is a very important aspect of what Domotz does here. We talked about inventory. We talked about enterprise asset management and understanding all that. Again, a very simple dashboard that allows you to sort and understand how many devices are in your control in your network that you see. You can sort these dashboards by the types of devices. You can sort them by online, offline status. You can get into each individual device and understand the state of those devices, whether it's the current firmware version that they're on, or logging into these things and seeing, certain sensors, right? SNMP, TCP-based sensors, so you can log in and get greater detail about ink levels and printers, CPU utilization, memory consumption. Those are all powerful tools within Domotz. We also have the ability to create your own customized dashboards. So if you want to sort your customers by importance, if you want to sort your customers by relevance to your business, if you need to look at specific sensors within certain customer-based systems, you have dashboards that you can customize and put on the relevant information that's important to you. So this is a critical part of what Domotz does as a single pane of glass as well. I mentioned before about network topology, right? Understanding that network, right? CIS control number 12, and in particular, safeguard number 4, calls out the fact that you really need to have an understanding of what the network itself looks like. Domotz will map out that network in real time. We will continuously update that as well. And we do this to make sure that you have a really good understanding of what changes are happening in the network, not after the fact, but right when those changes occur. And we can alert you to when these changes are happening as well. I mentioned before the network infrastructure, right? Part of managing that network infrastructure, of course, you know this when you go to set it up initially, but it's really understanding what does this configuration looks like. Domotz gives you the ability to not only look at the network infrastructure and back up those configuration files, but when something changes in that configuration, we're going to alert you to those changes, okay? And we're going to then give you the ability to see the differences between those configuration changes. And if you need to restore those changes remotely, Domotz gives you the ability to do that, whether it's through a firewall or through managed switches that are on that network. So this is one of the powerful tools that Domotz has here for you. Recall that I said when something does occur, and you guys know this, inevitably something will occur on that network, we give you the ability to do remote access into that system in a secure manner. So that way you can log into that system that is in a troubled state, reconfigure it. Maybe you need to reprogram it. Maybe you need to do some backup. Maybe you need to change a VLAN on a managed switch. You have the ability to do all of that remotely through the Domotz platform. And then lastly, one of the features that are less understood by service providers, but I absolutely want to make sure I call it out here, the ability to remotely power cycle stuff through a power distribution unit that is controlled through the network is something that we have the ability to do here. Domotz will pull in no matter what PDU you are using, right, or UPS, if it has controllable outlets, and we give you the ability to power cycle those, turn things on and off. Sometimes, as you guys know, a hard reboot is what's needed in order to fix this a particular problem that's on the network. And we give you quick access to that. I will also call out whether it's connected to a PDU or it's connected via PoE on a managed switch. If you need to hard boot a wireless access point, for instance, you have the ability to do that through Domotz. That being said, I came across my 10 to 11 minutes here, so I think I'm right on time. I want to take time to answer a couple of questions that we had coming up in the background. Muna, how'd I do on time there?
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Thank you, JB. We do have a couple of questions here. How well does the monitoring work with Macs?
So Domotz itself is monitoring the network infrastructure. We're looking at the network interface cards of any device that's out there. So any type of endpoint, right? When it comes to a Windows PC or a Mac or a Linux box or some sort of server that's out there, Domotz is going to monitor that at the network interface level. We are not diving into the depths of the software, right? We leave that to a tool like Atera to actually do remote monitoring and management of the endpoint. But I will tell you that Domotz has the ability to interrogate a PC and show things like which applications are running on it. What's the memory footprint? What do the logical disk information look like on that device? So Domotz does give a lot more information about the system, but I really want to point out that when it comes to managing an endpoint for applications and services that may be running on that, we leave that to the traditional RMMs. Remember that we are a network monitoring tool that should sit next to or congruent with a traditional RMM that's out there. It's a great question, Muna.
Perfect. Can you elaborate on what kind of integration will Domotz have with Atera or what we've done so far?
We can. So Domotz, first and foremost, right, we want people to understand that Domotz is a tool that's out there for them to help better manage the network. One of the things that we are actively working on with Atera is really the integration into your PSA side. So today, when Domotz raises an alert, right, when we see a flag or an event that happens on the network that needs to have a ticket raised, you can do that, whether that's through email integration, or Domotz also can do messaging into platforms, whether it's services like Microsoft Teams, Slack, Telegram. These are ways in which we can raise tickets. We're proactively working with Atera to make sure that we can raise tickets within the PSA tool, so that way you can have an active ticket raised.
Awesome, JB. We do have a few more questions, but I want to give time for our other speakers. So thank you very much, and thank you for those that submitted questions. We will address them and follow up with you. Thank you,
Thank you very
JB.
much. Thank you.
Ben, feel free to share your screen now. We will go directly into Threatlocker. Thank you, Ben. So again, just a little bit about Ben Jenkins. He is a cybersecurity expert with over a decade of experience working within the technology sector. Ben specializes in helping small to medium enterprises protect their businesses against cyber attacks, also in educating them on the latest in cyber technology and the importance of investing in cybersecurity solutions. Ben has presented in many events, and before joining Threatlocker, he held various roles, from being a support technician to a systems engineer. So together with these roles, he's become the expert in cybersecurity, and we're very happy to have Ben present to us today Threatlocker solutions. I believe, Ben, with you in the background, we have Rob who will be answering questions.
Yes, that is correct. So guys, if you have any questions, please do feel free to ping them over in the Q&A function. I have got my colleague Rob here who is going to be more than happy to answer any of them.
Perfect. Thank you, Ben. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you. So hi, welcome. My name is Ben. I'm our Director of Cybersecurity here at Threatlocker. And today I wanted to touch a little bit on zero trust at endpoint level, how it is that implementing a solution that utilizes zero trust is going to be one of the best ways to protect your network. But before we jump into any of that, we need to understand first and foremost, who are we fighting against? Who is it that we're trying to protect our network, our devices, our machines against? And realistically, we're fighting with cyber gangs like Lapsus, who took down Okta recently, DarkSide, who obviously attacked Colonial Pipeline last year, Conti, who are a cyber gang, who actually we're seeing them come out more and more recently. In 2021, they took down the Irish Health Service. The literal health service for the whole of Ireland was taken down by a cyber gang. And more recently this year, they were trying to overthrow the Costa Rican government. So we're fighting with cyber gangs like this. And we're also fighting with sophisticated businesses. They act as sophisticated businesses. They have CEOs and execs, etc. And more often than not, they're also sponsored by nation states like Russia, like North Korea, and like China. It's also worth noting, while we're fighting with these large-scale gangs, it's also everyday people like you and I. It is people who can go onto the dark web, they can purchase ransomware as a service for $750 and then send it out to 30 people and get a load of money in from there. Cyber criminals have made it very easy to be able to attack businesses and people out there on the web. And they're doing this through a fairly understood and common way. They're exploiting software that we use every single day. You know, we've seen it with SolarWinds was hit. We saw the Exchange vulnerability of 2021, print nightmare happening. Office 365 is constantly hit and exploited by threat actors. We saw that literally in June of this year with the Felina vulnerability, allowing you to execute anything that a threat actor wanted on your machine by you opening one document. And then obviously one of the most famous ones was Log4j. Last year alone, we had over 21,000 different pieces of software that were listed with exploits, or sorry, 21,000 different exploits. So far this year alone, we're at over 17,000. Every year for the last 5-6 years, we have been on track to overtake, and we are only getting more and more. Actually, just before Muna actually introduced me there, I had a pop-up on my phone that said that Zoom is actually down right now. So I'm not saying that is a cybersecurity thing, but it very, very well could be. So it looks like there's a lot of attacks that are happening. So how is it that we can go ahead and protect against these attacks? Well, the first one is pretty simple. Allow what you need and block everything else. That's pretty much it. You know, block everything. It's going to be, and we're not talking about kind of limited blocking of blocking at a user level or only blocking executables. We're saying block everything from running. That's going to be anything that executes on your local machine, whether it be exes, DLLs, PowerShell scripts, etc. If it is not explicitly known, it needs to be denied by default. Now, obviously, allow listing, which is what we're describing here, has been around for a while. And let's be realistic here. It's always been viewed as quite difficult. It's been viewed as a bit of a painful tool to be able to go ahead and deploy, and a little bit hard to be able to effectively manage. Now, the main reason because of this is, you know, building out that allow list, generally seen as quite painful, a lot of heavy lifting that you have to do. Well, we go through a learning process. We learn what exists on your machine. We create that policy automatically. From there, updating applications. We have a list of over 1,500, I think it's actually 2,000 now, different applications that we're checking every single day for any updates. We find an update, we catalog that hash, add it in for you, allowing you to update your applications easily. And we also have a new way of being able to go ahead and implement this. And this is the Threatlocker's testing environment. Here we actually allow you to be able to run an unknown piece of software inside of our cloud infrastructure to test if this is safe or unsafe. So rather than having to run it on your own machine or run it on your customer's machine and essentially take a stab in the dark to see if it's good or bad, we are able to do that inside of our cloud environment for you. We have a multitude of early warning systems to help you make that educated decision on whether or not you would like to be able to run that software on your machines or on your customers' machines. This is actually just brand new. I think we released this in the last week or so. Now, once you've chosen what you want to be able to run, you then need to be able to limit what they can do. As we mentioned earlier, software is being exploited on a daily basis. If we take one simple look, Office by default can call PowerShell. Now, where is the sanity in that? There is no need for Office to ever go ahead and call PowerShell, but it can. And this is an attack vector that we see threat actors using day in, day out. PowerShell can also by default go ahead and access your files and folders. So we actually do a demonstration internally here that shows you how to be able to take a copy with one single command, take a copy of your data using PowerShell and upload it to some Google Blob storage that we host here at Threatlocker. Now, PowerShell is a trusted app. We want to use PowerShell, but as we can see there, it's being weaponized against us. So with ring fencing, we allow you to be able to say app can run or executable can run, but it is not allowed to access X, Y, and Z, whether that be the internet, your files, other applications, or even the registry. Once you've gone ahead and chosen what apps are allowed to be able to run and what they're allowed to do, you then need to limit what your users can do. We know everyone has users on their local network who have admin controls their machines. Frankly, it's something that we do not like, but it's something we have to have. QuickBooks likes to update every single month. And to be able to do that, you need to have admin privilege. So take away admin privilege from the users that you're supporting, but allow them to be able to run specific applications as an administrator. only those individual applications are allowed to run as an admin. Everything else will run under that use, under a non-admin context. From here, we then have storage control. So storage control is a very simple concept. It's two pieces, essentially. First of which, go ahead and limit what USBs are allowed to access. So for example, only allow specific USBs to be able to be plugged in across your network, or deny USBs by default, or only allow them to be able to access certain file types if you wanted. And then finally, every piece of software that you actually have on your machine can access, well, your data. Obviously, that's kind of terrifying when we kind of sit to think about it. So why won't we limit that? We limit users from being able to access data. We need to now do that from an application standpoint. So utilizing storage control, we can also go ahead and say XYZ applications are only allowed to access this network share, or my public share can only be accessed by VLC Media Player, Adobe Acrobat, and Microsoft Office. Lock down your file and folder locations so that malicious applications cannot access that data. Now, obviously, there's been a huge shift over the last couple of years with coronavirus, with people working from home, with people traveling a lot more now as well. The world's opening back up. But what is the challenge with securing your local networks today? Realistically, there is no network anymore. As I said, we went into a lockdown. Everyone had to work from home for a while. We've then kind of gone back to the offices, but some people are not full. They're kind of hybrid. Some people are fully back and some just totally aren't. They've decided they're going to shut down the offices. You have people who are traveling day in, day out around the globe, who are working from hotel rooms, conference centers, etc. And whereas we had the protection on our local networks, on our office networks, of our firewalls, we now do not. So we need on-device protection. And that is exactly what network access control can do. Network access control is essentially the process of being able to lock down your machine's ports and allowing granular access to specific machines, whether it be by IP address or shared secret key, or even specific groups. So now it's dynamic as well. So rather than having to update a local IP address, or sorry, a public IP for a user's home network if they work from home every single week because it changes, because it's on a dynamic IP, you can now go ahead and set it by the individual machine itself. Now, by utilizing each of these 5 individual solutions, you can essentially enable yourself to have a stronger level of protection. I personally view this as essentially the base layer of protection. Having an EDR, having an AV, they are great tools to have. However, being realistic, they are not stopping all the threats that we are seeing come in at this day in this day and age. So by utilizing a zero trust mindset, a zero trust architecture, or zero trust solutions, you can help to protect your network and your customers' networks in a much, much stronger way. Now, obviously, we are partnering with Terra here. It's worth noting as well that you don't need to listen to me for this. You can listen to any of the compliance or insurance companies, or the different programs that have been released. You know, we talk about NIST. The White House, I believe it was in 2020 or 21, went ahead and actually published that zero trust is going to be mandated for all government organizations there. If you look at the Australian Cybersecurity Centre with their zero trust mandate, and then my final one I actually really like to recommend is definitely read up on 5 Eyes. So 5 Eyes. If you type in 5 Eyes MSP, they are made up of the Aussies, New Zealand, the UK, the US, and the Canadian cybersecurity agencies, all having sat down and said, these are the best ways that we need to protect MSPs and MSPs customers. So zero trust is actually mentioned inside of that as well. Now, that is, I think I've got 15 seconds left. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll jump over to the Q&A from here. Thank you, guys. If you have any questions, please do throw them over.
Hi, Ben. Thank you very much for that clear and somewhat concerning presentation, I guess, in terms of security. We do have a couple of questions, one related to Mac. So
Okay.
how does Mac support in all of this? What is the kind of support that's available?
Great question. So when it comes to Mac support at this minute in time, we actually have a agent that is an open beta. So please go ahead and test it. We want to be able to get it out there. I'm hoping, and if I say this publicly, maybe it'll change things and we'll get it out sooner, but I'm hoping that it'll be officially released within the next 3 to 4 months. Obviously, fingers crossed, by the way. But yeah, we currently do have a Mac agent that's in open beta, so we'll be able to help support that in the future.
Great. And there's another question here about, you said blocked everything else. What happens if you didn't intend to have an application blocked? How quickly can you remediate that intention? If
Great
a customer
question.
comes back and says, I don't want this blocked.
Yes, great question. That's obviously that's the number one thing. You know, when we talk about allow what you need and block everything else, the instant fear is, well, what happens if I need something down the line that's going to go ahead and get blocked? And full disclosure, it will. Now, utilizing our solution, we can actually go ahead and when you block something down the bottom right, there's going to be a little pop-up. You click on the request button, and that request will be sent straight over to your IT administrator. Now, from that process of clicking request and sending that over, you could essentially have a piece of software approved within a minute. So 1 minute is how long it's going to take there to be able to actually approve that piece of software. Once that's been approved, you actually have another pop-up down the bottom right of your screen that will say, hey, you've been approved to run this. And you'll have a little button that says run. So you get nice alerting features inside of it as well, telling you when you're actually allowed to be able to run it as well. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome. So I want to thank you again. I would like to move to our next speaker, Dave. So Ben, feel free. Thank you. And Dave, please feel free to share your presentation. I do want to invite the audience, please share your questions, even if we don't get to them directly after the presentation. We will continue to address them in the background. If we still have a little time at the end of the presentations, we will address those. So yes, perfect. And now ready to start off with Dave. Dave Russell is a 32-year veteran in the storage industry. He today serves as Veeam's Vice President of Enterprise Strategy, and he's responsible for driving strategic product and go-to-market programs, spearheading industry engagement, and evangelizing Veeam's vision for what we call modern data protection. Prior to joining Veeam, he held the role of Vice President and Distinguished Analyst at Gartner. Amazing, for more than 13 years. And he spent 15 years at IBM in product development for mainframe and open systems backup/recovery. We also have Ellie Beaton with us in the background to address your questions. Ellie is the Regional Advisory Systems Engineer, and he would love to address any questions you have as Dave walks us through the solutions. So thank you. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you so much. And actually, as of last month, it's 33 years in backup. So I'm one of those people that never figured out what I wanted to do when I grew up. And thanks, Thomas, for noticing the cyberpunk chair. Yeah, I don't actually play video games, but I sure sit in the chair for a long, long time. So take you through a little bit about Veeam. This is the kind of, upfront vendor slide. The thing of note really now is we have over 450,000 customers globally, about 183 countries. Now, for 3 years in a row, we've achieved $1 billion in software only revenue. There's less than 3 dozen companies in the world that can say that. And we'll be now on track probably by late October to hit $1 billion again for the 4th year. Of those 450,000 customers, I'm the enterprise person, so I'm very focused on the enterprise market, but we've now achieved just over half at 53% of our revenue last year from the enterprise segment. So that's approaching 72,000 enterprise customers, but that means we have almost 379,000 mid-size enterprise and smaller customers as well. Veeam, as of IDC's latest software tracker, every 6 months IDC publishes a tracker. Veeam is tied for #1 globally. We're also #1 in Europe or EMEA, #1 in Latin America. But we've pretty confident that within the next month, about mid-October, the next tracker comes out. We think we will be #1, not tied, but in sole position, because the vendor that we're tied currently with for #1, they are declining by double digits year over year. We are continuing to grow double digits year over year. One of the reasons we have 450,000 customers is the full copy of Veeam I can run on my Lenovo laptop, as well as my more production class servers in my home lab. We can take the exact same ISO image and scale down to the smallest of environments, but also scale up. So with these other couple numbers are showing, with one instance of Veeam, a major European bank is protecting 20,000 machines, 8 petabytes of data. Again, that's the same code I'm running on my Lenovo laptop. We also are the most deployed protection solution for Microsoft 365 and have over 11 million paid seats. You may have heard of Veeam in the past. Now, over the last 15 years, Veeam started off focused in protecting virtualized environments, specifically vSphere from VMware. We've been adding hypervisors such as Hyper-V, Nutanix HV, Red Hat, as well as physical workloads, cloud-based workloads, and SaaS-based solutions. We're on the eve of coming out with our inaugural Salesforce product and critical applications. So I want to just take you through 3 focus areas that Veeam is very committed to helping customers improve their position in. The first is something we like to call backup modernization. And when I was a Gartner analyst, it was interesting. I would usually have about 2,200 to 2,500 calls with data center professionals each year. And eventually I would realize I just spoke with someone 18 months ago that was going through a backup modernization effort. And now they're calling back in. What happened? Well, basically the story oftentimes was that customer was not able to go and realize all of the modernization improvements they wanted to make, either because of cost, lack of human resources. This day and age, it could be lack of ability to get the equipment, meaning supply chain issues. But what we've seen globally, and Veeam, we've commissioned now some of the largest independent reports in the history of our industry. Our most recent one was the largest ever in the backup space, of 4,300 global respondents from 28 countries. The #1 reason people say that they would switch their backup solution is to meet their recovery SLAs, meaning the recovery time and recovery point objectives, followed closely by cost concerns. So what we want to do is focus on both ends of the backup and the recovery side. Veeam is unique in that with one single solution, we can capture data in 4 different ways: traditional backup, server-based replication, continuous data protection on VMware, or integrate natively with storage systems. So that's how we capture the data. But the reason that we back up is to recover. Veeam pioneered the notion of instant recovery, meaning instead of having to wait for all the data to come back, we can instantly mount the data from our backup repository, make that available for usage, and then vMotion or instantly move that data back in our production environment or a secondary environment if we lose production. Now, it used to be that we only restored 3 to 5% of the data that we backed up in a 12-month period. The trick was, of course, you didn't know which 3 to 5%, and you didn't know when. But instant recovery, as we'll see, becomes really important in today's threatscape. Second area really like to focus on is cloud and Kubernetes acceleration. And certainly in these last few years in the pandemic, we've seen a lot of movement to or expanded usage of the cloud, whether that's infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and increasingly Kubernetes environments. The diagram down below, it's a little small, but the really important part there, we're just showing an on-prem location, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and bi-directional arrows signifying that data can flow back and forth transparently. Now, we're used to thinking about potentially backing up or archiving data to the cloud, maybe even doing disaster recovery in the cloud. But cloud native workloads are becoming more common. They too need to be protected. They are oftentimes not just used for development, but used for revenue generating activity. SaaS backup, really the poster child there is Microsoft 365. We like to say that while Microsoft offers a very durable platform, the data is still your responsibility. And then cloud mobility. We have organizations that want to develop in one cloud, go into production to another, or want to be able to migrate data in the future to the cloud of their choice. And Kubernetes. We're seeing Kubernetes rise dramatically. Interestingly enough, the operations teams or the infrastructure teams typically think Kubernetes is about 2 years away. You talk to the app dev or DevOps team, and they say they've been in production for about 2 years. So there's a gap there that we want to shore up. The third area, you almost cannot have a conversation about the data center or about data without having a discussion on ransomware. Keeping with that notion of we used to only restore 3 to 5% of our data, now ransomware means that the attack surface, unfortunately, could be 100% of our data, and recovering to a known good point in time is the unwind point or the remediation of last resort, and that's where backup plays a critical role. On the backup side, we offer a number of technologies. I'm just going to highlight a few. The ability to write data in an immutable fashion such that it cannot be encrypted or deleted. Mentioned that Veeam pioneered instant recovery. We added on to that a number of years ago with the ability to verify the backup and its integrity right after we do take the backup. So if there's any problem, we can go and capture the data again while it's still resident in the production environment. Best practice has been to have 3 or more copies of your data, 2 different types of media, one of which that was offsite. We've added now on further digits to that based upon the above technologies, meaning at least one of those copies should be immutable. You should have 0 backup errors to ensure that you can recover. When it comes time to recover, recovering fast, instant recovery, and being able to recover at scale very, very rapidly becomes important. Ransomware, unfortunately, is a disaster. It's something that can strike. It's really a ransomware, a crime of opportunity, oftentimes more than anything else, although there's certainly state-sponsored events. We have that notion of leveraging our instant recovery capabilities to then interact with your malware detection solutions, something we call secure restore, to make sure we don't recover and restore back any day 0 threats into your production environment. We can do that automatically. We can do that safely while you're still going through a restore process and not have that linked or through the network into your production world. We also offer orchestration capabilities around disaster recovery so that you can automate your response, and you can also automatically test that recovery response. So I'll just share with you a story to close out. This is actually from a couple of years ago. This is one of my colleagues, Anthony. He tweeted out, there's a lot of interesting things coming in what was then our current release called version 10. We're actually on the eve of releasing version 12. What he's mentioning, though, is he's likes the idea that a couple of years ago, we introduced this concept where just by clicking the button called import backups and entering your credentials, we could start streaming backup data from another location, meaning if your entire production environment got wiped out, if your backup catalog got wiped out, because we write data in a self-describing manner, we can point to another bucket. In this case, he's pointing to an AWS bucket, and be able to authenticate and get your data back. Our head of production, or rather product management, said, well, that's interesting, but can you actually stream that back? So he tried it. He's based in Perth, Australia. That little map you see is actually him on Qantas flying from Perth to Melbourne. He started streaming back over Amazon S3 bucket with a low bandwidth, high latency connection, was able to do that right off of his laptop. Again, he had to have the credentials to do that, but this was an interesting academic exercise that actually became reality with our Canadian service provider, where the service provider was contacted on a Monday morning, found 100% of the data was lost. Several of the infrastructure components were taken out. They were able to pull back data using credentials from Microsoft Azure came in with a fresh laptop because all of the systems were bricked and pull all the data back. By the end of the week, they had all data, all systems back up, no ransom paid. That was the power of the solution. So with that, I will pause, see if there might be any questions.
Dave, that's really great. What I want to do before posting the questions, Julie can help us here. I want to run a poll.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, thank you.
So the audience should be able to see the poll now. I do invite you to go ahead and answer. And while they answer, I do want to mention a couple of things, if you don't mind. So we talked about the introduction of the latest integration. So for our customers going into the platform to explore the add-ons, you will see Domotz and you will see Threatlocker, but Veeam is still in process. So maybe Dave, you can talk a little bit about what is the level of integration that we're putting in place, and how soon will this be launched within the Atera platform?
Yeah, we're actively working on making this available, so I think it will be sooner rather than later. There's a number of easy ways to consume the capabilities, and I'll really reference the platform slide that I'm showing here, whether it's on-premise machines, be they physical, be they virtual, or be they NAS or file shares, or certainly things like Microsoft 365 or some of the cloud environments. Whether anyone wants to start with a portion of that, or maybe it's start with a portion of protecting, say, your remote offices. Number of easy ways to engage, and you certainly can deploy as it makes sense for the environment. I'm looking at the poll right now, and the good news is many people think that they're skewed more towards thinking they're highly recoverable. We've done an independent survey of 1,000 organizations that were hit with ransomware globally. Unfortunately, the lessons learned from that, and I hope that our audience is not amongst them, is that typically they're going to, on average, lose 37% of their data, meaning they will not be able to recover 100% of their data. At Veeam, we're committed from a cyber perspective of making sure you're in that 100% camp.
Awesome. A second question here, Dave, is, there is a proliferation of solutions out there. I'm sure that our customers are also using current backup solutions. Can you help really emphasize what makes Veeam unique or different?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there used to be a myth that nobody switches backup products, and Veeam went from 0 to now $1.3 billion. So that shows, and that's annual, that's billions of dollars each year. So that shows that there actually is share shift happening in the marketplace. The reason that Veeam is differentiated is based upon ease of use, ease of deployment and ongoing management, speed of backup, but more importantly, speed of recovery, and then the ability to protect more modernized workloads, to be able to do that in a cost affordable manner. Unfortunately, what we hear over and over again, and I've seen now, I'm used to research this over a 12-year period. Now at Veeam, the last 3 years, we've conducted independent research. So we're at 15 years of why people switch their backup products or augment their backup products. It boils down to the 3 C's, I like to call them: cost, capability, meaning generally speed of backup and recovery, and then complexity, wanting to reduce the daily operational burden.
Awesome. A final question here. Will there be an option to check or manage Veeam backup and replication backups from within Atera? So as part of that roadmap we're putting in place, can you speak to that yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I can take it. Just the phase of the integration is that we are starting in the first phase soon. It will be up and running in Atera console marketplace as a beta. And for the beginning, we are going to implement it as an agent base, so we can your MSPs can back up endpoints, Windows, Linux, Mac. And in the roadmap, when we are seeing, according to the customer demands, we will add additional integrations like, hypervisor-based backup, virtual machines, replication, and all the benefits that you already get if you know Veeam from the on-prem solution. And additional services will be onboarded through Atera marketplace. So yeah, we are looking, it's only the first of the integration, and it's fantastic, and the demand is high. But of course, we are going to add more and more services in the future, so you can consume Veeam, whether you are using it, on-prem as a standalone solution or through our great partner Atera.
Ellie and Dave, I want to thank you again for this amazing presentation. I do want to thank all of our speakers. I want to remind our customers that across all of the integrations that we have, we're starting and continuing to deepen the integration. The motivation is for you to have a single pane of glass where Atera can be your go-to solution to access, manage all of these partner integrations so that you can grow your business. With that said, I think we're towards the end of our presentation. If our speakers would like to do any closing statement, this is the time. JB, you're on mute.
I am on mute, but I'm always happy to get off mute and talk. So I really appreciate you allowing us this time, Muna, and the Atera team. Thank you for letting us present Domotz. I know that in the background, Giancarlo and Bobby both answered quite a bit of questions. I do want to point out that if anybody does have any more questions, whether they're technical or sales related, they can reach out to support@domotz.com, and we will be more than happy to address any of the questions that you have. So thank you very much, Muna.
Thank you, JB. Ben, if there's anything closing here you'd like to share.
Yeah, thank you for having us on here. I know Rob went through and answered a load of questions. The final thing I would just say, guys, any other questions? I know Rob's thrown his email in there. It's rob@threatlocker.com. Or feel free to email me. It's just ben@threatlocker.com as well. So yeah, any questions, anything that we can help with, we're more than happy to. So thank you.
Awesome. Dave, any closing statement?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what JB and Ben said. Thank you all for the time. Thank you for the interest. And, feel free to reach out to either Eli or myself. Our email conventions are just first name, period, last name @veeam.com. Really appreciate everyone's time.
Fantastic. And I'll take this opportunity again to remind all of our audience that this session has been recorded. You will get access through an email that we'll send out, but you can always come back to our on-demand section for the webinars to take a look at this session and our previous partner in spotlight sessions. So we appreciate you being here. And a gentle reminder, when I close this session, we do have a survey that will pop up right at the end. Please take a minute of your time to complete it. We appreciate that. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, speakers, and have a great weekend. Thanks again.